The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at CoolStuffInc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 640.
The best of 2015, 5 years ago.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, I have a strong reaction to a new escape game series, which prompts a discussion of our favorite hint systems in the genre. Tom reserves a review for mid-top 10 list, and we discuss the launch of our 2020 fundraising campaign. Then we're back in the time machine driver's seat with our top 10 games from 2015. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, the Mark Watney of board gaming, Tom Vasel.
Okay, so I didn't know who Mark Watney was, so I looked it up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, it's that dude in The Martian.
It's The Martian.
Do they use his name a lot in the movie? Maybe they do, and I just don't remember.
Well, I mean, he's alone for most of the movies, so, you know, he doesn't say, I, Mark Watney, am doing this and that.
That's true.
He sort of narrates his life and doesn't really say who he is. But yes, The Martian, you're just a guy trying to grow his potatoes and keep people from bothering him.
Will you come rescue me?
I will try.
It's a lot of money.
It'll take a while.
Folks, welcome to our show. We're really glad to have you here.
And Happy New Year!
That's right. This is our first episode of 2020. Woo. And it's already, 6 days into the year. You know, that's just a weird thing for that to happen. I think I like having New Year's and Christmas on Wednesdays, though. That needs to happen every year.
Really? My wife really didn't like it because it just messes up the work week significantly. Like, either you have to take a bunch of vacation days so that you get the full 2 weeks off, or you have these weird, like, pockets of... I barely know what day it is right now.
You know, I guess that makes sense. Since I work from the studio and stuff, it's not as big of a deal for me. But it's always weird to me when Christmas gets tied up in a weekend, I guess. I like it away from the weekends. But hey, you know, then I guess it's good that it moves. It makes everyone happy.
It did. Eventually, everyone will be happy, yeah.
As the years go by, your wife will get happier and I will grow irritated and vice versa. That's how it works, right?
It's the ebb and flow of my existence, Tom. My wife is happy. You're not. You know, sure.
Yeah, well, it is 2020. It was a good year. Did you play games on New Year's Eve?
We did, actually. We did mostly party games. So we played some Wavelength. We played a new cooperative game called Cahoots that I hadn't known about before. We played a good amount of Just One.
Okay, this is weird.
Yeah?
The two games that we played on New Year's Eve were Wavelength and Just One.
Sure. I mean, it fits. It works with lots of people. We had 2 games of Just One going simultaneously at one point.
Yeah, so Wavelength went over really well. I taught a group of people, and it's just a great party game back and forth. Have we talked about Wavelength on the show?
Yes, I know you talked about it. I hadn't played it until, I think, just a week or two ago for the first time.
Well, if you've never heard of this game, folks, there's teams, and then you have to... One person on a team looks at a dial. They'll spin the dial, and that dial will show you a target area somewhere on this frame of reference, 180 degrees. And then you'll get a random category like hot and cold, or good person, bad person, or whatever it is. And then you have to give your team a clue so that they will pinpoint exactly where on the dial that frame of reference is. And then arguments ensue. After it's revealed, more arguments ensue. Like we had good topping on a pizza or bad topping on a pizza.
Oh, boy. And
the person said chicken. And we argued for the longest time. I was like, chicken seems like a really good topping to me. And someone was like, no way. Well, it turned out it was a negative thing. Also, a really funny one. It basically turned into a newlywed game. We had a couple who are getting married in 5 days from now.
Oh.
And she said, like, I forget what it was. Like, was it, whatever it was like delicious or not delicious? And she said raspberry. and he put it like way on the delicious side, and it was not even close for her.
Oh, no.
And so I told him I'd get raspberry something for their wedding. I'm definitely doing that now.
You know, if you want to see this game being played, Crystal Pisano and Rob Davio and I played this on Dice Tower Tonight just this past week. So if you search for the New Year's Day episode of Dice Tower Tonight on YouTube, you can watch us play the game.
That's right. I saw some of that. Man, there's been a lot of Wavelength. And then just one. I taught it to some people who had never played it before, a game in which everyone knows the answer except one person. That person closes their eyes. Everyone writes a clue, and you show them to each other, a one-word clue. But if your clue matches someone else, they're erased. Mm-hmm. You then reveal the remaining ones to the person whose eyes were closed, and they have to guess it. It's a cooperative game, and there's some sort of scoring system that I have never in my life used. And, man, I finally had to say, all right, I'm taking this game away because I want to go home. They just kept playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it.
Have you ever played this game 3-player, Tom?
No.
I mean, it's designed to be a much larger group game. I think it plays up to 7 total, so you have 1 guesser and 6 clue givers. But if you do have the minimum, which is 3, 1 player is the guesser, and the other 2 have to give 2 clues each, which is sort of an interesting twist on it because you can actually play off of yourself. You can almost give a 2-word clue, but then you have the danger of if you match one of your 2 words with the other player, then your 2-word clue doesn't make any sense. Like if the answer was cream and you put cookies and then the other person matches cookies, then you just have and that's going to be confusing.
Wait, are you allowed to put your words together, though, like that? How would they know that cookies went with and?
Because they're written in your handwriting. Each player gives 2 clues, but you do have the risk that a match will eliminate one of those 2 words, so you can't count on a 2-word clue. It's different. I think I certainly prefer it with the larger group and 4 to 6 players, but you can play it with 3.
Alrighty, I don't know. But either way, just one and Wavelength, and then you said Hootie or Mootney or
Cahoots. It's a game from GameRight. It's a cooperative.
Oh, that's right. I played Cahoots.
Yeah, there were two games called Cahoots that came out in the same year, 2018. There was one from Mayday that's like a trick-taking game, and then this one, which is a cooperative Uno-like game, and you're playing cards to piles trying to achieve goals and get through those goals before you run out of cards. And you're
it's
not allowed
actually
to
trickier than it sounds.
It's and it's family weight for sure, and it's very dependent on the luck of the draw. But you're restricted in how much you can communicate. You can't say what's exactly in your hand, but you can sort of say, "I can help with this goal," or "Don't play on that pile. I really need that one." So if you're creative, you can pretty much telegraph what's in your hand. But it's still a fun one, and we hadn't heard of it until this past week. Found it at a game store and immediately snatched up a copy. So that was a good one.
I gotta say, I only took party games to New Year's Eve. I was just like, you know what? No, it's a time just to play party games for me.
Sure.
And so I took a whole pile, and of course we didn't play all of them, but those 2 worked really well. So it was a good time of gaming. Once again, I completed my Christmas non-gaming day type thing, but I got lots of other games played. But before we get into that, I should mention that Wavelength and Just One are both in the Dice Tower library, which is almost finished now. I have filled 20 shelves with games. We're just under 1,500. Actually, I don't even know. We might be above 1,500 at this point. They're labeled. I have my number 1 daughter coming in to double check on that in a couple days. My daughter, for a brief moment in time, as I have just found out through Instagram, that she is engaged.
What? Congratulations.
I know. It is exciting. And
you found out through Instagram?
I emailed her and said, it would have been nice to find out, like on a personal level. She's like, oh, I was going to show you in person to make it more special. It's like, the internet, you can't, secretly do stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. So
that's great news. Congratulations.
It is. So that's Melody, if you have been keeping up, who I believe was born shortly before this podcast started. Maybe it was a little bit more than that, but it wasn't too much more.
No, wow.
Okay, I'm getting sidetracked here. Anyhow, so this library, we're getting it ready, and it's about to be shipped. It's going to go then directly to the cruise, and then from the cruise to Dice Tower West, which registration closes today. If you didn't get it, I'm sorry. But Dice Tower East registration is still open, and we'll be announcing Dice Tower retreat dates soon. I can tell you for sure they're going to be in September.
Okay.
Probably the weekend after Labor Day. So,
okay.
Alrighty, well, with all that being said, let's jump into some other games we played that are not necessarily party games.
Shall I go first?
Starting with Eric.
So the first, this was a game series, I guess, that I was super excited to pick up at Essen this year. It's called 50 Clues. The publisher is Norsker Games. It's named after the designer Jeppe Norsker. They're Dutch, I believe. 50 Clues is an escape room style game, a puzzle solving game. It's probably closest to Unlock or maybe Deckscape. You have a deck of cards. You are also interacting with a web page / app where you enter the code for this particular adventure, and there will be items that you discover on cards. And unlike Unlock, where you're taking an entire card and meshing it with another card, one card in 50 Clues may have multiple items in it. You find a trunk with 3 items inside, and each has a 3-digit code, and you can combine those codes in the app to combine them, use them in different ways. There's also a entry point in the app for codes, and while some of these other games have always a 3-digit code or always a 4-digit code, the codes in 50 Clues can be extensive. Sometimes 10 digits. So there's a lot of room to mess up, for one thing. And there's a lot of variation in how these codes can come together and just very creative ways that all these things can mesh. That is the system. I really liked the system for 50 Clues. The theme for 50 Clues is, it says it's 16 plus. It has a big warning on the outside saying graphic themes not intended for children, which absolutely is true. However, I think it needs to go even farther than that. This theme has you as the avatar of the game. You're playing Maria, who is trying to escape from a mental institution.
I just realized what this game was. I have this sitting on my desk. I thought it was called something different.
It's 50 Clues is the blanket name. Leopold is the series. It is a 3-part adventure. So you have part 1, part 2, part 3. The first one's like the Pendulum of the Dead. I forget what the second one. The White Sleep, I think, is the second chapter. And then the third one is the Fate of Leopold. And Maria is trying to track down the reincarnation of King Leopold II. In order to stop him from being evil. That's about as much as I want to say. The things you are asked to do in this game are very dark. This story does get very dark and violent. And at times, I was very uncomfortable, actually, moving the story forward. There were points at which I knew what I needed to do. I didn't want to do it as a player. I didn't want to do that act to move on in the story, but that's what you had to do to move on in the puzzles. And ultimately, I'm not sure it all paid off what I was hoping it would when you get to the end. It gave me, I don't know if you ever played the PlayStation game Shadow of the Colossus, Tom?
No, I know what it is. I understand that the ending of that game is not thrilling. It's story-wise.
Well, it's sort of like as you go through the game, you get this sinking sensation that you are not really being as heroic as you want to be. You start to get a lot of doubts as to what you're doing, and I think that is the intent here. You're supposed to start going, I don't really feel good about these things that I'm doing. And I was hoping for more closure at the end of 50 Clues, at the end of the 3rd chapter, and it doesn't really give you that. It's very ambiguous at the end. So altogether, I liked the system. I would have appreciated a little bit of a cleaner story. This is definitely an extreme, a dark, an uncomfortable plot. if that's something you're looking for, it's well executed.
Well, you've played Escape Tales, right?
I have played the first Escape Tales, not the second yet.
Well, the second one's not as dark as the first one. The first one's dark, but you're not the bad guy.
Yes, and I think that's a significant difference here. 50 Clues has you doing these dark things, and that I felt uncomfortable throughout.
I've gotten some emails and some messages about this game. I have it sitting on my desk at work, actually. And just the things that have been told to me about it, I feel like I would refuse to play it.
I don't think you will enjoy it at all. I think it will make you very uncomfortable.
I think we're not being too spoilery by just saying that as a parent, I could not play this game. I think. I'm actually surprised you finished. I heard that people walked away from the game halfway through.
I wanted to, but so at some point I was uncomfortable and I wanted to power through it. And I did the last 2 chapters in one day, like in one sitting, because I wanted to get through it and see where it ended up. I played it solo. Well, especially once I saw what was going on in Chapter 1, it wasn't something I wanted the kids to see me playing. I wanted to get through it and see if the finale, if the overarching story was worth it from an artistic standpoint, I guess. But it put me in a very weird place, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be playing this one. The thing is, there's so many escape room games out there anyway, so I don't feel like I'm even missing out at that point. I feel like, I said this before, I think we're going to see escape rooms start dying down in 2020, and we're going to see them morph into more story games like the adventure games.
Possibly. The only other thing I wanted to mention is as a basic, I love it when games give you clues. And this game does. You can hit a clue button and it will, guide you through the puzzle that you're currently working on. But when you get to the final clue that finally gives you the answer, I really like it when the game tells you how you were supposed to get that answer. Like, don't just tell me what the code is supposed to be. Tell me how I was supposed to manipulate the clues in order to get that. Tell me the logic of the puzzle. Because what I really disliked on a couple of moments in this game is when I got stuck and I went through the clues and it said, obviously, when you see this card, it tells you that the answer is this. And I'm like, no, that's not obvious. Tell me why. And I found that even more frustrating because now I'm expected to go on. There is no more information about this puzzle. They've told me the answer, so just move on. I haven't been able to find a walkthrough of the game either to figure out what the issue was.
Yeah, I don't think enough people are going to play it. So what game system do you think gives the best clues? So Exit gives you some cards. There's 3 cards. You flip a card.
Yep.
And the more cards you flip, the lower score you get, although if you flip a card and you already know that part, you're fine. Right. Unlock has an app. You press like a button for a clue, and it can keep giving them to you. Or you type in numbers.
Yes.
That will give you a clue. The escape room, the game, the board game, I think you have to look them up online, if I'm remembering correctly.
I believe you do. I'm not a huge fan of that system. Their escape room, the game, that's the one with the device that you're putting the keys into.
I love that game. I'm saying the clue system there is not as strong.
Right. Well, there are hints, like hint envelopes that you can trigger periodically through the game.
That's right. There's hint, or also the time. When you hit a certain time, it'll give you a hint.
Right.
But
that
you
one's
can
less
look
useful.
Up online, yeah, especially when you get a hint for something you solved 10 minutes ago.
You can,
sometimes we would just sit there and we would go, all right, let's just sit around for 5 minutes, wait till the next clue reveals.
What I do like about, if you do go online and get the walkthrough, it is a walkthrough that does explain the logic behind the puzzles. It's not just an answer. It says, but when you looked at this and put them together like this, that's the answer. So that I like, and I like Exit is usually pretty good about explaining the logic of the puzzles. When you get to that third level clue that basically gives you the answer, it still tells you how you got there. Unlock doesn't always do that, but it's also pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know which one I like better. Sometimes Unlock, I'm not sure what number to type in next.
Yes.
To find the clue.
Yeah. If you're trying to combine 2 cards, which number do you type in as the clue?
Yeah, Exit's probably the cleanest system, but it's also the bulkiest system because you have a bunch of decks of cards on the table.
Yep.
And I don't know, None of them feel perfect. The best way to do it would be to have some guy sitting there reading a newspaper, smoking a pipe. And you'd be like, we're stuck here. He's like, have you ever thought about the value of pi? And you're like, oh, that's a good clue. Thank you, pipe smoking man. Well, and then you go back.
You know, that's actually what I ran the Catacombs of Horror, the two-part exit, at a convention. I had an extra copy. And so I ran it there, and I could do that.
Right,
and
I think that's great when you could do that.
Because I already knew the puzzles. I actually even ran through it a second time to know what I was doing. And I could give them more subtle, nuanced clues or clues that I knew would help them based on their play style. So, yeah, that was actually pretty good.
I've done that before. It happens sometimes at our game group. Someone's playing through one of the unlocks because they could be replayed multiple times. And they'll be like, they look stuck, and I'll come over and I'll be like, have you ever turned that card upside down? What?
Yeah. Yeah, the worst is when you get a clue that you don't need yet.
So 50 clues, you're not giving it a positive rating.
I am giving the system a positive review, but a big, giant hazard warning for the content. You really need to want to go into this style of story. Otherwise, there's other games to play.
All right, well, I'll jump into a less offensive game. Taverns of Teeth and Thaw. Have you played this one yet, Eric?
I haven't played the North Star version. I played the original version. I don't know if it's any different, but I played it once.
I don't know. I mean, the North Star version has modules in it. I don't know if the original one has modules, but you probably played with the base game.
Probably.
In Taverns in Teeth and Thaw, it's a bit of a deck builder. You have a board in front of you that's made up of a lot of different pieces, actually, and that's because different pieces can be flipped over as the game goes by. You have the deck of card that has some various things in it, patrons and barkeeps and brewers, etc. And each round of the game, everyone gets something special happens to them based on the round. And then you take this deck and you start flipping cards over and putting them in your tavern. If you turn over a brewer, for example, he goes in the brewer section of your tavern. If you turn over a patron, they go at a table. If you turn over a server, they go in the server section. If you fill up all your tables, though, you're done. You stop drawing cards. So you might draw 3 cards at the beginning of the game because you have 3 tables, 3 patrons, you're done. Or you might draw through a whole pile of cards. There's a few things in the game that let you kind of redraw your cards if you want. So then after you do that, you then roll some dice and you draft dice, taking these around the table till you have a bunch of dice. Then you place dice on your cards. Many of the cards, like patrons, have an exact number that you need to match. Some places you don't. And based on the different cards in your tavern, these will give you money and beer. They are the 2 resources of the game. They're a virtual resource. You can store a little bit from turn to turn, but not too much. So gold is spent to buy cards and improvements to your deck, and beer is used to get more patrons into your deck that will give you more gold. Gold is used not just to buy new cards for your deck. You can buy new tables and new servers. Servers give you extra dice. Brewers give you extra beer, blah, blah, blah. But you can also flip over, upgrade sections of your tavern. You might be able to upgrade your gold storage. You can only store 2 gold. You can upgrade it. Now you store 5 gold. You can upgrade your server so that you always have a server whether you draw one or not. And so on and so forth. There's a spot you can put a die that gives you a gold. And you flip that over and now it gives you 3 gold. And you just keep doing this for 8 rounds. And after 8 rounds, the game will end. Now, whenever you upgrade a piece in your tavern, you get a noble will join your deck. Those nobles are worth 10 points. I can't emphasize how powerful that is in this game, where most everything else is 1 or 2 points. These nobles can also be patrons, and you can serve them and give them gold too. And that's how the game works. There's some more nuance to it than that, but hopefully that gives you a good idea. This is a deck builder that's a little weird in some ways because you draw all these cards and place them out in your tavern at first. And sometimes that's awesome, and sometimes it's not. And the game definitely ramps up like all deck builders do. It gets more interesting as the game goes by because you have cooler stuff in your deck. The problem I have with this game, that I think it's a decent game, I don't hate it, I just don't think it's great, is that you have 8 turns in this game. And I found turns, or is it 9? It might be 9. It's 8 or 9. I found the last 3 or 4 turns to be interesting. The first 4 turns were really boring. I got a couple gold, a beer, maybe a few beers. I'll do this, buy a card.
Yeah.
And that happens in all deck building games. Sometimes you can't do anything of any use on your turn. And that happens in all deck building games too. But most deck building games like Dominion, you have about 40 turns. So having 1 turn where I don't do anything is not a big deal. Here I found it to be a bigger deal. I also found the strategy to be kind of samey. Yes, you can upgrade all the different sections of your bar, but you usually can only afford a few of them. So you pick one of those. Should you buy more tables to put in your deck? 100% yes. It just seems extremely obvious to do that. I know that there's nuances and some differences, and I know that the modules add more play to it. But at the end of the day, I found myself a little underwhelmed by the game. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't exciting.
Yeah, I've only played it once, again, so I can't speak to the replayability or the sameness of it. But I did enjoy the upgrading. I like the puzzle pieces that you flip over and you know.
I actually found that to be a little. There's a lot of setup in this game.
There is.
For how short the game is. Like, you have to build this whole little puzzle thing in front of you, and then flipping them over, and you have your own deck of cards. And I just sorted this out today, actually. And it's like, oh, let's get a big bag and just put everyone's stuff in one bag. Because there's a lot of pieces to this game. I actually dug through the trash on this game because my kids thought that some of the stuff that you punched out was garbage.
Oh.
So I opened up the game and I was like, where's all the boards?
Uh-oh.
Kids like, weren't those punch boards? Like, no. Has the garbage truck come by yet? It hasn't? Huzzah!
Oh, good. Oh, fun.
So, yeah. It's been a great week. Dumpster diving. Well, that didn't happen this week. So.
Okay.
Anyway, that's Taverns of Teeth and Thaw. A lot of people like it, but there are several who feel the same way I do also. I don't think it comes close to the brilliance that is Quacks of Quedlingberg. But, yeah, you might like it.
Cool. Next for me is a game called Porto. This is from a designer named Orlando Sa and Meebo Games. This is a very whimsically drawn game. You are in the harbor town of Porto, and the board has lots of spaces for buildings, and multi-story buildings. There's maybe, I want to say 7 or 8 on each side of the river. And you have a set of cards that are numbered 1 through 3 in various colors. I think 5 different colors. And you will be building buildings on the board. And in order to play a card on you can either take cards on your turn, sort of Ticket to Ride style. You can draft them into your hand from a face-up display of, I think, 4 cards. And you can take multiple cards as long as the total of the numbers add up to no more than 3. So I could take 3 1s, or a 1 and a 2, or a single 3, and then take those into my hand. That would be my turn. Or I may play cards, and I always play 2 cards at once. One card will be played for its number, and the other will be for its color. So if I play a 2 and a green, I will place 2 green floors on the board. And I can either start a new building, a new green building, or extend a green building that's already on the board. You can't put the same color next to another of the same color. You can't put a green next to a green. But other than that, you can only start 3 of a particular color. So there's only 3 green ground floors in the game. You get bonuses for starting new buildings. You also get bonuses for ending buildings. And you also get bonuses for completing certain tasks. So I might have a secret goal card that says you want a yellow and a red on both sides of the river. Or you need to have a purple, a green, and a blue next to each other somewhere on the board. And each time you manage to do that is worth points. And you play until you run out of roofs. You have a certain number of roofs to cap off the buildings, and once you've run out of that, the game is over. It plays very quickly. It's a very quick, simple structure to the game, and a good time. I found it to be very tactical. The points for completing your secret objectives aren't nearly worth as much as completing buildings and getting those bonuses for starting buildings and being able to capitalize on stuff that other people have left you. But still, that's a good time. And it has a little bit of a Ticket to Ride vibe in the drafting of the cards, which isn't a bad thing. And an enjoyable game. I don't know how available this is in North America. This was an Essen release that friends got from one of the importers. But still a good one, and worth it just to see the dragon in the middle of Porto. Porto from Meebo Games.
Yeah, the whole thing feels like a magazine cover, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit.
I really like the art on Porto. It's a nice undersung game, I think, would be a good word for it. All right, well, the last thing I'm going to talk about in this section here is first impressions of U-Boot. This, or I guess it's U-Boot, maybe? This is a game in which you are running a German submarine during World War II.
Then it's U-Boot.
Is it U-Boot?
Well,
okay.
It would be a German sub as a U-boat.
All right. Well, you're if Eric says so, I'm okay.
I say so. I'm going to put my foot down.
Anyhow, it's a cooperative game, and there's 4 players. You can play up to 4 players: engineer, captain, navigator, and first officer. You each control 8 different people, although only 4 at a time because the other 4 are sleeping, which I was told was very historically accurate because you can't have 8 people. You can't have 8 people running around the boat at the same time. There's not enough room for them all.
Interesting.
And so when you play through this, you have these 4 kind of workers that are somewhere on the boat doing various tasks. They each have different tasks. But this game needs an app, 100%, free app that comes with it. You can get it on the computer or on the iPad or something like that. And you are playing this game in real time if you so desire. So when we played, I think we played a 48-hour mission, which if you wanted to, you could play for 48 hours.
Wow.
Now, well, you don't. What you do is you're running the game in real time. You make a bunch of decisions, and then you're like, all right. And the captain says, what does Picard say? Make it so. Right?
Yep.
And then you press fast forward on it, and it will keep going. It will just zoom to the next event, which could be an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours later.
Okay.
So when you get to these events that happen in this scenario, different things will break down on the submarine. So the engineer player has to move his guys around and fix stuff. The navigator is using charts and tools and various things to plot the course and figure out which way to go. The first officer will help where to go and to dive the boat, etc. And the captain's giving out orders. And he can't give out too many orders or morale will go down, which could go down to the point of even mutiny.
Oh,
well,
nice.
We haven't seen that. And every once in a while, you will find an enemy sub or a ship or something that you need to fire at, and then you do so on the app, and loads of torpedoes and everything. It's very exciting. But it's also a lot of work keeping this sub from crashing. Now, I'm giving first impressions on this because it was an amazingly fun play. We played with 5 players. It's a 4-player game, but the 5th player knew how to play and sat there and helped us with all our rules questions, of which there were many. There's a lot going on. I would love to play this game solo, but I don't think I could grasp more than 2 of the positions at a time. There's so much going on. It's also hard, not overwhelmingly hard. I mean, we did blow up 2 unprotected merchant vessels. We then went after a fleet and somehow missed them completely. But and it has this big 3D submarine in the middle of the table that you moving these little guys around in this submarine. The navigator is also the cook. Got to make sure everybody's fed. And it's kind of weird because there's a lot of complexity, I feel, in the game, but it all makes sense thematically. And I don't feel like it's overwhelming, but it's one of those games I would want to play at a convention or with a bunch of people. Again, I was very fortunate in this game. 4 diehard gamers playing the positions and somebody teaching us. So everybody kind of knew what to do. And the navigator was like a buff on history and everything. And I would say, well, why is this way? That seems weird. And he'd be like, no, that's actually historically accurate, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ooh, I'm learning.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed it. I don't know when I'll play it again. It's a lot to get back out to the table, a lot of stuff going on. I would like to play it not at a game store, at home at some point, because you can play in one mode, when there's enemy ships, you can turn on a mode where it uses the speaker on your device, and you all have to be as quiet as possible.
Huh.
Or they'll hear you.
That's
when
cool.
You're trying to run silent. That is neat, right? Can't do it in the game store, though.
No.
Like, okay, everyone be quiet. Guy at the table next to you's like, Happy Salmon! You're like, I will kill that guy. So
that is cool.
It's a lot of fun, but it has a very steep intro curve, I guess would be the best word for it. It's not, once you understand it, I think it all makes sense. I think I could even teach it after that one play, probably. Maybe. But there's a lot going on. And also, it's really tied to that app. At some points, it's almost a computer game. Which is, again, it's not terrible. It was really fun. That's U-Boot.
Last one for me, Tom, you mentioned wanting to play U-Boot solo. Spaceshipped is a solo game on its own. That is the only way to play it. It's a game from Button Shy Games, so it's one of those wallet games. 18 cards, I think. It's by Lucas Gentry, I'm not sure how you say his last name. And it is a space-based delivery game. And I guess there's pickup in there as well. So immediately I was like, yes, let's try this thing. The cards are multi-sided, multi-use cards. So a particular card might have a colony side, which tells you the market prices for various goods, also some events on that side. And then the other side might have equipment or goods that then you can pick up and do stuff with, or maybe crew members, other stuff you can buy and use on your ship. You start out with a basic ship with some shields and a basic crew member and a little bit of money. And the object is to end the game by getting 2 crystals, super crystals, that you have to buy for like 20 gold or space bucks or whatever it is, 20 money. And you only start with 3. So you have to earn a little bit to be able to buy those things. The cards are arranged in sort of zones. You've got your ship, and then you've got a colony row, which has the events that are going to trigger at any given moment, and also the market prices that you're looking at. And then there's a row of goods that you can pick up. There's like asteroids and computer chips and different goods that are worth stuff. And then there's one more row of the equipment. And you sort of, as you deal the cards out, you turn the cards to be what the row says they're going to be. You will trigger one event in the first card in the colony row, then a second event in the second card, and then the market prices are there in the third card of the colony row. You can upgrade your ship, get more cargo space. You can do all cool stuff. And then at the end of your turn, the cards sort of rotate. Which one comes first? I think the colony card goes away and becomes a equipment piece, and then that goes into the goods row, and then the goods row goes into the new colony space. And so you can't see what the new events are going to be until it flips over and comes at you. If those super crystals, however, go past that row, the bad guy, because you're playing against the game, the bad guy is going to tick 1 notch over. And once he ticks 4, as crystals go by him, he will take that crystal. And then he flips over and he only has 2 more notches. And if 2 more crystals go by him, he takes a second crystal and now he's won the game. So you have to buy those 2 crystals before the bad guy gets enough turns to take the crystals. I found this to be pretty interesting. You're upgrading and trying to make purchase decisions. Your precious money, spending the same money that you need to buy the crystals to win the game, also on upgrades to hopefully make it easier to win the game. And I was cruising along and really enjoying making my ship stronger and planning out how to get those crystals, and everything was clicking. And then an event came up called Solar Wind, which shuffles everything. You take all the cards and just shuffle them all up and deal it all out, and suddenly all of your plans are all screwed up. And that happened 3 or 4 times in a row in quick succession. I was ready to win the game, and Solar Wind, blah, 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 which is just annoying. So I was pretty positive on Spaceshipped for a long time. But then having a random event that sort of like just churns everything up. That's not my favored way to keep things interesting. It was almost too much chaos. And to have that be, I fear that is the mechanism that will determine winning or losing in this game. If the solar wind comes up at the wrong time, you're not going to win. And if you manage to hold it at bay and it gets stuck in a different row and not in the event row, then you might be okay for a while. There's even the possibility, knowing what's on the other side of the solar wind event, I think it's like an asteroid or something, that you could buy it and leave it on your ship and never put it back into circulation so that it would never happen again. And that's a little weird. Anyway, I was positive on Spaceship. Now I'm sort of in the middle because of that random event which just rubbed me the wrong way. Spaceship from Button Shy Games.
Whew. Alrighty, well, I got some more things to say, but I'm going to save that to later on in the episode.
Ooh.
Let's talk about something else. Okay, folks, before we jump into our question segment, I want to take a quick note here and mention why we're releasing this actually a day earlier than we normally do. And that's because our Kickstarter is launching today at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Our Kickstarter is something that we run once a year, every year in January. So if you're listening to this, we launched it in January 6th, 2020. We've run one every year, and this is the main way that the Dice Tower has funding. The Dice Tower is, of course, this audio podcast you're listening to, as well as a video show, the Dice Tower, on the YouTube.
On the YouTube.
On the YouTube. Now I'm sounding like an old man there. On that YouTube thing. And so we have put out a lot of content last year. For podcasts, we put out one almost every week. I think we missed 2.
Did we? I feel like we may have taken 1 week off. I think we may have.
Well, I'm being super.
I think we may have hit every week.
Yeah, maybe. Or either way, there's a lot of shows, and that's partially thanks to Mandy and Suzanne covering the other half of this. We have videos. We did almost 900 reviews and about 1,500 videos in total. Lots of top 10s and lots of things going on. Mm-hmm. So I recommend, I don't want to spend too much time in this episode. We've done in the past, gone over a lengthy spiel. So let me make it a little shorter here. The vast majority of our funding comes from this Kickstarter. I try not to ask for money all year round. I don't want to do that. We do it once a year in the month of January. It's all our content, this podcast included, is free. If you can't afford to give, that's fine. You can download and listen to our stuff. I have no problem with that at all. But if you can afford it, I'd like you to consider doing it. I'd like you to consider maybe a $50 donation. That's $5 a month about. Where you, for all the different content that we put out, because it helps keeping us going. We have several full-time employees. We have part-time employees like Eric, who does a lot of work with us in various ways, including this podcast and editing the podcast and voice work and things like that. Also, if I might be so bold, there's some pretty cool promos and neat stuff. In fact, we have new superhero people.
These are adorable.
Dice people. Yeah, there's some cool things. We got a custom Dixit card I was just showing Eric before the show.
That's also very cool.
We have some new promos for Tainted Grail and Nemesis, and really, I think there's over 60 different games that we have promos for. We have new Dice Towers, a scratch-off poster.
Scratch-off poster?
Yeah, so this is I met these guys at Essen, and we're making this poster where it will have gaming achievements on it.
Oh, wow.
And when you do that achievement, you scratch it off. And you're trying to level up as a gamer.
Okay.
And so if you get all the, you level up completely, I don't know, then you're like a full gamer. But either way, it's a fun poster to hang on your wall and have fun with. So there's all kinds of stuff. So if you can't donate, or even if you can donate, both ways, consider spreading it around. Tell people through Twitter, Facebook. Spread the word. Let people know that we're doing this. I'm very thankful that we started doing this several years ago. It works well, and we've been able to get better because of it. One of the things that I'm going to work on this year, specifically, this is for you podcast folks, is getting a better rig for myself. Eric's is ridiculously cool. But I want to get a better microphone, a better setup so that I know it's very clear to everyone the better half of the audio on this podcast. I would like to improve that and get some better equipment here at home so I can do that.
Okay. You want me to put together a shopping list for you, Tom?
That might not be a bad idea, sir. Maybe a little bit less than yours.
Yes, got it.
Eric is a professional. But so that's what we're doing. So check it out. You can find links to the Dice Tower on our Facebook group, in Board Game Geek, on our Twitter, on our YouTube channel. We'll have them all over the place. You will easily be able to find it. And in advance, thank you. And thank you for letting us do 2019. 2019 was a fantastic year. Yeah. We had a great time. At least I did. I don't know about Eric.
No, it was good.
No, I think he doth protest too much. No, but we do appreciate it. I'll mention this in our next episode. I don't want to take too much time out of the episode to talk about this, but we appreciate all of you, and we hope you spread the word. Let's jump into the next segment.
Mr. Vasel. Tom Vasel. Will there be a Dice Tower theme park?
If you were a die, what sort of die would you be?
Will there be a Vicious Fishes movie? And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Let's kick things off with Emily. My husband and I listen to your podcast often, and we hear trick-taking games mentioned but have no idea what trick-taking means. Could you help explain this game mechanic and suggest some lightweight trick-taking games we could check out? This is always a good question, and we often fall into the trap of throwing some terms out without fully explaining what that means. So trick-taking games are when cards are played by the different players, and usually there's some sort of ranking of those cards, and after everyone has played usually one card, someone will have the highest ranking card, and they will collect that group of cards. That is called a trick. They have taken the trick, and usually that player will then lead by playing the next card of the next trick. There are, of course, plenty of variations about this. You might be playing 2 cards in a sequence, or you might do what are called ladder climbing games, where you will play multiple groups of cards and may continue playing until everybody passes. But basically, you play a sequence of cards one at a time, and someone will win that trick and take it. That's where trick-taking comes from.
A lot of trick-taking games have something called trump, which has been around for over 100 years, as I had to explain to somebody on the YouTube comment at some point.
Really?
They thought I was getting all political. I was like, no, I promise you the term trump has been around, and that just means one of the suits is stronger than the others.
Yep.
So a good example of this, you asked about simple card games, is one everyone owns practically, and that's a simple deck of cards with hearts. Hearts is a trick-taking game. And in hearts, everyone gets it, and I believe whoever has the 2 of spades leads, or is it the 2 of clubs?
Yeah.
Okay, well, some person goes first. That person plays a card from their hand. So let's say it's me. I play 7 of diamonds. And Eric looks at his hand, and he has the 10 of diamonds and the 2 of diamonds and the 3. He can pick any of those to play. So let's say he plays the 10 of diamonds. Then we go to Sally. She has no diamonds in her hand for some reason, so she can play anything she wants. She plays the 6 of spades. The next person plays the 2 of diamonds. So then the highest person who played diamonds, which was Eric, he played the 10 of diamonds. He wins the trick. He gets all 4 cards, which in this case means nothing at all.
Yes.
It just means he goes first. However, in this game, if you get a heart card for any reason, then that's a point. You don't want points in this game.
Hearts are bad.
So hearts are bad. Hearts are also trump. And are they trump in this game? I can never remember.
I don't think they're trump.
No, they're not trump in this game. I keep thinking this game has trump. It does not.
Yeah.
Some games do. Rook is a very simple one that you can play that has a trump in it. So after the end of the round, everyone counts up all their hearts, and whoever has a bunch of hearts will lose points. There's also the Queen of Spades, who's worth 13 points.
Yes. And then, of course, Tom's favorite mechanism is that if you collect all of the hearts and the Queen of Spades, that's called shooting the moon, which gives everybody else points, and you get nothing.
It's very difficult to do because if you start collecting a bunch of hearts, people say, I know what you're trying to do.
Yes.
And they may take a point or two, although it is possible, and it is a lot of fun. In fact, there's a game out there called Indulgences from Restoration Games, which that's the whole point of the game, is to shoot the moon.
Yep.
But there are a lot of simple trick-taking games out there. If you can find David and Goliath, I would recommend that one. But like I said, Hearts and Spades are two very basic trick-taking games you can play with a regular deck of cards.
Yes.
And Rook is a pretty cheap one that you can find in a lot of stores. Mm-hmm. What are other basic trick-taking games?
Well, Stronghold has Diamonds.
That's true. Diamonds is a very simple one.
I mean, Euchre is another one that you can play with a standard deck of cards, Setback, standard deck of cards. There's lots of variations of the trick-taking game that you can play with just a standard deck.
Now, realize trick-taking is a very specific mindset. When you first play it, you'll think, I don't really have a lot of options here. Everyone plays a card, and I got to play this card for my hand. I don't have choices. But you do, and knowing what card to play is just something that takes a lot of practice. Mm-hmm. It's definitely... It's a learned thing. You can win not having played before, but there are some mistakes that you'll quickly learn. But there are subtleties in these games, and you'll find that from game to game, they'll turn something on its head. In this game, you want to win tricks. In this one, you don't want to win tricks. In this one, you predict how many tricks you're going to win.
Yes.
There's all kinds of weird things, and that's what makes the genre so fun for me. But that basic understanding of tricks helps a lot.
Yeah. And the upcoming The Crew from Cosmos starts out very simple and becomes more complex as you complete different missions.
Justin asks, the Dice Tower, no doubts, he has two questions. I'll ask the second question first.
Okay.
What's your favorite game that includes hippos?
Zularetto.
Ooh, good answer. Are there hippos in Zularetto? Now you're wondering.
I'm actually not sure. I think one of the expansions does.
I'll say Hippos and Crocs, which is an abstract game from the guy who makes pencil case games.
You mean the one that published Vicious Fishes?
Shut up, Eric. Hang on. Nestor Games. Hippos and Crocs. I just did a quick search here on Board Game Geek, and there are only 9 games with hippos in the title.
Oh, okay.
And Hungry Hungry Hippos is the most famous one.
Yeah, that's
After that is Hula Hippos. And then Hippos and Crocs, which is what I mentioned. Then Hungry Hungry Hippos, Fun on the Run. And then Heavy Hippos.
Okay, so that's after they've eaten.
And then here's one I need to play now. It came out last year. It's called Hippos Love Sushi.
Oh, I did not know that.
It has no ratings. Nothing. It's like the game doesn't even exist.
Okay.
Alrighty, anyway, back to his real question. He says, the Dice Tower no doubt gets a lot of information about games before the public does. Have you guys ever accidentally revealed information about a game too soon? Or been dinged with some sort of penalty or fine, for revealing information about a game that wasn't public yet?
I don't think I've gotten in trouble. I'm sure it's happened before that we've misunderstood.
Okay. Well, it's happened to me twice.
Yeah.
Okay, the first time was silly. The silly time that it's happened, and I don't think a game company could give me a fine. Maybe if I signed an NDA, they could take me to court.
There are some NDAs, but yeah.
If I sign an NDA, I can swear to you I'm not doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
Well, once Eric and we had an exclusive interview with Stephen Bonacore about Merchants of Venus.
Yep.
And I said, when can I announce this? And he said, at midnight. But
such and such a day. He didn't say what time zone.
He didn't say what time zone. So I launched it because he was in Essen. I said, I'll do it when in Germany at midnight.
Yep.
Not that it mattered a few hours. But anyway, he woke up to find that Fantasy Flight had also the rights for Merchants of Venus. And it was a thing.
It was
for
a thing.
Bit. But it was happily resolved.
Yes.
Which was... It was really funny. I think it was like a surprise interview, too. Like, Eric didn't know I was doing it.
Oh, no. No, I mean, I didn't know. I think you said we had a guest, but I didn't know why. And, yeah, I was very excited.
Yeah, that was fun. The other one was more problematic. It wasn't a huge deal. But this was Descent 2nd Edition. Mm-hmm. Was sent to me. I got an early alpha copy, or whatever they're called, from Fantasy Flight. And so, this is several years ago now. And I got it. I played it. I was like, all right. They had an embargo on when I could review it. No worries. I'll wait till that embargo. But
You put it on your shelf.
It was on the shelf behind me. Now, this was back before I had 1080 cameras. I think it was before 720. They were not quality cameras. And yet, sharp-eyed people noticed it there, zoomed in on it, put pictures online. I got a phone call personally from Christian Peterson about that one.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I was very apologetic, and it was obvious I didn't do it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, this stuff happens occasionally. People spoil stuff. The biggest spoilers are the distributors.
Oh, yeah, because they put stuff in sales information, and they don't really care about the embargoes.
Well, I don't know if they care about the embargoes. It just gets released by accident sometimes.
Right.
People follow these distributors like, wait a minute, this was a line item added here. What, this game? I get it. You know, we get embargoes not too often, and I find that the best way is just to kind of forget the information. I don't know about upcoming games more than the public that much. Like, I knew about Frosthaven before the public did. But it was like a week or two. Well, maybe a few more weeks, I guess, than that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about this, and I don't even look it out, folks. I know people come to me and they're kind of like, what do you know? Wink, wink. It just isn't that big of a deal. There's so much stuff to know about now. These secrets aren't that big of a deal. You know, sometimes the publisher comes and be like, I bet you're wondering what I'm doing. I'm like, not particularly. I got a lot of other things to think about. There's like 10,000 games that just came out yesterday. You know, but I mean, if someone does say don't talk about something, be careful, we do. Or at least I make an attempt to. I will often schedule my review the day after the embargo, just to be super safe.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
So Troy has a tale of frustration. Do you think the overwhelming amount of new games produced every year and the cult of the new is hurting the hobby? After 9 years in the hobby, I have taken a huge step back and focused on other hobbies. I found my enjoyment of board games becomes less and less as I took my games to board game night and rarely got them played. And if I did, it was once, and then someone wasn't a big fan of that game, and then that game didn't hit the table again. Also, I got sick of spending time deciding which game to play, and many times playing games I don't enjoy that much just because others wanted to play an ultra-dry Euro or some other new game that just came out that they just bought off Kickstarter that ended up being just blah. Many people in the group have tons, hundreds of games. I went to Board Game Weekend with 10 people from my group and purposely brought only 3 games and ultimately played none of them, as there was probably 150 or more games there, and in total only about 15 or 20 were played over the weekend. I sold off about 80% of my collection and enjoy the hobby much less. It just feels like a waste of money unless I enjoy collecting board games. I now feel like the best way to enjoy the hobby is to not have any board games, as everyone now has so many games it's just easier to play theirs, and own none, since other than 1 or 2 of my games mostly just sit on my shelf, never being played. In talking to many other people like me, everyone sort of is feeling the same. Too many games, they have not enough time and people to play with, and many people have slowed greatly the amount they buy, but even still there's always an overabundance. I do feel like the board game bubble is going to burst, and we'll see a massive cull of companies and games as people run out of space in their homes and apartments and get sick of having so many games laying around. Now, I don't care about the games at all and just more show up to hang out with friends and care less about the games anymore and just check around pieces and care less if I win or lose. I am probably going to cull even more games. Since the cult of the new from others will always supply me a steady feed of new games to play if I want to, and it's just easier to show up and not care. I found more enjoyment lately with RPGs and miniature gaming, as I always know I am going to get to play with the stuff I have, and feels like a better investment. I still enjoy board games, but just a lot less. I would be curious to hear your thoughts, and if you are seeing this, or have seen this with other people. Maybe this is board game burnout.
Well, I feel like you answered your last question with that.
I think so. I mean, obviously you want to play the games that you have already, and you aren't as interested in the brand new stuff. I think you need to host a couple of board game nights where you are specifically playing the old stuff. You talked about enjoying the RPGs and miniature gaming because you know what you're going to get. You almost need to structure a board game night with that same intention. We're going to play an unloved gem. We're going to play stuff that's at least 5 years old. We're going to do this. instead of the brand new games.
Sure. And listen, you don't have to play new games all the time. You can find people, like I play new games all the time. It doesn't bother me. I like it. And in my game group, there's a group of guys who do not play new games. Well, they play them occasionally, but they play older games, and they pick a game and play the same game a lot. That's fine. That's what they like doing. I'm glad they have that opportunity. I do not think there's a bubble at all. In fact, it's pretty obvious it's not a bubble. If you look at the economics and stuff behind the scenes, that's not what's going on. Is there too many games coming out? Yes. Will some companies crash and burn because of this? Yes. But the whole industry is not going to come, well, as far as I can tell, it's not going to come crashing down. And for every company that goes out of business because they're selling too many games, another one seems to jump in.
Sure.
Kickstarter certainly helps that in regards. But you can just get a few games or not. Like you said, you don't have any games at all. Play your friends' games. That's fine. The only difference is if your friends, if you trust in them for games, they may not have the game you want to play at that point.
Yeah.
I know our podcast sounds like we're always recommending games, and we are. But we're not recommending to you, a single person, to get all these games. We're just saying whether a game's good or not and whether we like it or not. I do like 10 games everyone should have in a collection. I don't really believe that. You really can have whatever game you want. If I went to your house and you're like, I only own 5 games, I would say,
it's fine.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you play them? Great.
That's awesome. I'm not a big fan of having so many games. I have a friend, and I'll keep his name private for the purposes of anonymity. Who called me on New Year's Day and said, can you bring such and such a game to the New Year's meetup? And I said, well, it's over at the storage unit. I don't feel like going over to get it. But wait a minute. You actually own this game. Why don't you bring it since you own it? And he said, I'm not really sure where it is, and I don't feel like taking the time to find it in my house. I said, come on. You're not doing anything else. Find the game. He's like, all right. So then he called Roy and asked if Roy had the game, if Roy would bring it. And then Roy said yes, but then Roy forgot to bring it. And then when we got to the New Year's thing, he said, why didn't you bring the game? And I said, are you kidding me? This might be proof you have too many games. When you are so lazy, you won't find a game in your own collection, and you will call other people to bring theirs instead. I am not a fan of having massive collections that never get played. So if you feel like I think board games are awesome. I really do. But if you ever feel like you're getting burned out on this cult of the new and new stuff all the time, take a step back. There are other people like you who will also be glad to do things like this. Or sometimes it's best to take a break.
Yep. And visiting a convention is often a good way to play some older stuff. You'll find fans of those classic games as well.
All right. Our next question comes from Eric, who is from Luleå, where Calyx is located. There's a place they named a bookcase after.
What?
I thought it was a made-up word, Eric.
Oh, wow.
He says if you're a flyer, you'll land in a place known as Calyx. Okay. That's more interesting than your question, Eric. I mean, I'm not saying your question's boring. It's just that is such an interesting thing. I could talk about this for a long time. Like, I want to own a Calyx bookshelf in Calyx. Anyhow, okay, so your question. He said we mentioned in one of our videos that I might do a Marvel Champions and Marvel Legendary comparison. What about Sentinels in there? Yeah, I think we could do a comparison between the three of them. Sentinels is the easiest one to play because you get a deck, you just play the cards from it for the most part. Legendary is a deck builder that you play during the game. And Marvel Champions, you have your own deck, but you have to think very carefully how you play it. I think more so than Sentinels. I don't think Eric's played Champions yet.
No, I have not.
So what would you rather play, Marvel Legendary or Sentinels?
I still like Marvel Legendary. Sentinels certainly has its charm, but the bookkeeping on Sentinels just sort of wore me down.
You could always play Sentinels on the app now.
I could.
So.
Yes.
But anyway, then he says, is there any DC-themed games that are fun out there that's not Batman and a billion miniatures and that you can buy in a Kickstarter? And he's talking about the Batman, the huge, gigantic one, the Batman Gotham Chronicles.
He wants one you can buy in a store.
Well, the most popular DC-themed game is DC Deck Builder.
Which is the one he said, yeah, you can leave that on the shelf, the one where you buy kicks and punches on the sidelines. No, he didn't want that.
Oh, no kidding. I just realized that. Well, there you have it. I didn't even see that. Okay, never mind. So, well, I don't like the game either, so you're in good company. There's not a ton of DC-themed games out there. At that point, WizKids made one where you were the villain and you were all fighting against Batman, although that one is not in stores anymore. The DC superhero cooperative game is not. Dice Masters, I guess.
Wasn't there is a new one, the Sinister Six game that's also...
That's, okay, first of all, Eric, I nerd rage coming on. Sinister Six is in the Marvel
Is that
universe.
Marvel? Never mind. I thought that was...
Also, it's a pretty bad game.
What's the one with Deadshot?
Deadshot.
That's not the same people?
No. What?
That's the Suicide Squad. Sorry.
Eric, I'm going to need you to be quiet for the rest of this question.
Okay.
If we're going to talk about comics and stuff.
Is there one where Green Arrow is teaming up with Iron Man? I think there's...
Troll alert! Woo! Woo! Dude, I live in a studio with many trolls. Okay. So, yeah, there's not a ton of DC-themed games out there, unfortunately. If there are, they're mostly made from Cryptozoic. They made a few Batman games and WizKids. I can't think of any other company that has the DC license. Although one can always hope that Marvel Champions, that Fantasy Flight, will announce they have DC also. That'd be cool.
Never know.
That's just me making it up.
Adam wants to know how the Dice Tower seal of approval works. How does it happen? Do companies contact you? Do you contact the companies? Curious how it works.
I have never actually contacted a company. That would be interesting. Like, you have won the seal. I have companies contact me. They're like, hey, we're going to reprint the game. Can we put the seal of excellence or seal of approval on it? I always say yes, because why would I say no?
Right.
Sometimes they ask how much it costs, and then I always say it's free. It doesn't cost money to put that on there. And then I send them a file with some legalities. A lawyer wrote up something just so, people use it properly. But it's totally free to put on. It doesn't happen as much as you might think because the game actually has to have a second printing.
Right.
So
yeah.
Sometimes they do stick it on the shrink wrap, which is fine too, though some of them print out stickers and put it on.
Sure.
I know a couple at Essen have printed them out and quick put them on their games there. But I don't know how strong of a draw we are. I will say, of all the things that I take a little pleasure, it is fun when I go to a mass market store like Barnes & Nobles or Target or whatever.
Yeah.
And you look and see a game on a shelf with our seal on it. You're like, oh, that's cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
But yes, if you're a board game company and you got a seal of approval or seal of excellence, let me know. You can use it. Not a problem. And finally, Jacob says he's in a board game group that loves strategy board games together. And they started inviting more people. So they have 4 to 5 players. But then it's 7 to 8. And they're in the realm of party games, social deductions, etc. And the host tends to have a collection that's 4 to 5. And there's not enough room to separate into smaller groups. So that, because I feel like I was already to say
Yeah, that was the answer. You need to split. But
he said, with that being said, how do I tell our group host that they have too many people to play anything decent, or am I being selfish for even having this thought? Because he wants to be respectful and not be critical, giving they host game nights, respect their home and their decisions. I would talk to them about the situation.
Yeah.
Be like, listen, I like to play, I like to play
Tigris and
Root.
Euphrates. Yeah.
And Root needs 4 people at most. Well, I guess with the expansions. But, okay. So is it possible that we could switch on game nights and have maybe 4 people? Try to come up with a positive solution. Say, can we do another night with smaller games? Or maybe if I don't come next Saturday, but I come the following Saturday, can we play some of the smaller games?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would work pretty well.
Yeah, you mean there is a theoretical limit to how many people can fit in the space. There must have been a reason why the host started inviting more people. Maybe the host wanted to play more social deduction and larger footprint games. It might be worth trying to split the table. Try and play one game on each side of the table, depending on how big it is. But if you really don't have room to split into 2 tables, you're going to have to rotate in and out in order to play these smaller games. and coming up with a system for doing that could be tricky. Well, be honest. I'd really like to play some of these games, and we just don't have the right player count for them. What can we do?
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, let's get into our time machine, Eric, and go back 5 years ago. Into the vacuum cleaner. No, what's the Calvin and Hobbes one? The transmogrifier? Well,
the transmogrifier. Right? Well, it all depends. He'd cross it out, and it wouldn't be a transmogrifier anymore. It would be a time machine. It's all just one cardboard box.
Let's do it.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10.
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
All right, 2015. So, folks, every year we go back in time and take a look at 5, 10, and 15 years. And starting in 2020, we'll also be going back 20 years now.
What?
I know. We've been gaming that long.
Oh, my goodness.
So I hope that this helps counter the cult of the new. We definitely will talk about new games. You'll hear them at the beginning of the episode. But we also want to talk about games that came out in yesteryear. And I will say that on my list, almost all these games I play now. Well, with one major exception, and I'll explain that when we get to that.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I think I figured that out.
Yes, okay, so there you have it. 2015 was a cranking year for games for sure.
It was.
In fact, I would recommend, if you have a chance, to go onto the Dice Tower video show. Me and Z did a decade in review where we took a look at each year, and you can see our thoughts on that year and some of the games that came out.
Cool.
We don't have as much crossover on this list as I thought. Yeah. So we better get started.
Let's do it.
Number 10.
Let's kick things off with Fuse. This is the game that I think put designer Kane Klenko on the map. He's sort of known for these real-time cooperative games, but Fuse was the first one that I recall seeing with his name on it. Fuse
I think you're right.
It's a cooperative dice drafting game. You very quickly, it plays for like 10 minutes, and you pull dice out of the bag and roll them, and then quickly, I want that black die, I want that blue 3, I want this, and you're taking the dice and putting them on cards that have rules as to how you can place the dice. So there might be some sort of complicated equation that you have to solve, or they all have to be the same number, or they have to go in sequential order. And completing them is how you work your way through the deck, which is how you win the game. You've got to get your way all the way through all the puzzles and win before you run out of time. Fuse is a very cool cooperative game, and it's a tense one, but a fun one. Fuse, number 10.
I like it. My number 10 is Star Wars Armada. This was the follow-up to X-Wing. This lets you fly around Star Destroyers and Mon Calamari cruisers, and then even X-Wings. You had little X-Wings flying around in between everything. It's very similar to a fleet battle game with ships, honestly, but I really like it. I don't play it much these days because, well, it is a miniatures game, and there's a lot of stuff to pull out and everything, but I really do enjoy the systems of this one. It's a nice, I think it's a little bit more thoughtful and less frenetic battle than the X-Wing ones are, and I enjoyed it a lot. That's Star Wars Armada from Fantasy Flight Games.
Number 9.
Number 9, I could have sworn was on Tom's list at one point, but he went back in time and removed it, and that's Time Stories.
Well, yeah, I'll explain it in a second, but basically I missed a game on the list and added it, which knocked it off.
Which knocked
number
Time
10.
Stories off. Time Stories has sort of heralded in the escape room genre. It is a puzzle game, cooperative. You're exploring different territories. I love the way that you would sort of have a panorama of each zone you visit, and you're exploring each section of this scene. I loved the puzzles. I wasn't quite as much of a fan of like combat system. You had to roll dice to do some things, and then you'd run out of time and actions and have to sort of reset and go at it again, knowing some of what you should avoid or maybe head toward on the next run through. Some modules were stronger than others, but I think for heralding in the puzzle-solving escape genre, Time Stories gets some credit. It's my number 9.
Yeah, now this is weird because this was easily my number 1 back in 2015, and it dropped all the way down to number 11. And I'll tell you what, it's only 11 because my experience with it was so fantastic when I first played it, and it continued to be fantastic all the way up to the 3rd, and then it wavered a bit. I still enjoyed it, but as time went by, I disliked it more and more, and I thought the finale to this Time Stories was so bad. It still makes me... I think I gave it a 1. That's how annoyed I was at the end. Now, I do have the brand new Time Stories in my hand.
What?
Yes. We haven't been able to get to the table yet. We've been so busy with the Kickstarter. I told the guys tomorrow if we finish early, we'll play it. I hope so. But this is a standalone Time Stories. So it comes in a box, everything you need. But then there's also this other box called Time Stories Experience where you can tie them together if you want.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I'm going to try it, though, for sure. I'll let you know. Anyway,
Okay.
Time Stories, once fantastic. It's falling for me. Mage Wars Academy is my number 9. This was a very streamlined version of Mage Wars Arena, which actually was just called Mage Wars until Mage Wars Academy came out. Then they split them. Mage Wars Academy is a faster version of this Magic the Gathering style game, except you pick all the cards and you can pull them. You can play any cards you want on your turn as long as you have enough Magic to play it. And it's really fun. It's fast and furious compared to the other one. It's fading a bit for me. I don't play it as much as I used to, but I still really like it. Mage Wars Academy.
Number 8.
My number 8 is one of our rare crossovers. So, hey, here's a really obscure clue. I will remember the immortal words of Iori Yagami from King of Fighters 2006.
Okay, my number 8 is the Voyages of Marco Polo. This is another one that's dropped a little for me, not because I think it's a bad game. It's an amazing game. But Marco Polo 2 came out this year, and I like it a little bit better. So, but Voyages of Marco Polo, which is a Euro game, which you go around and collect resources, and everyone has this amazingly overpowered special ability, which is a very rare thing in a Euro game. And I like it. It's a dice placement game. You'll be placing dice out there, moving Marco Polo around the board, collecting resources, completing missions. It's fantastic. And I still think Eric hasn't played it yet.
No, I have, and this just missed. It's probably early teens for me. A really strong game, and I do enjoy it.
All right, it says Voyages of Marco Polo.
Number 7.
My number 7 is Oh My Goods, the Alexander Pfister card game that's all about chaining your actions and getting a worker to build one particular resource that you can then turn into another resource. And it's got a little bit of a push or luck aspect, and it's sort of spawned an entire universe. The most recent Expedition to Newdale is the board game version that just released this past year. Oh My Goods is a lovely little card game. Make sure you're playing by the second edition rules. If you find an old copy of this that has the first edition rules, no, not so good. Make sure you have the second edition where you take like a final turn at the end and get to run your whole engine. Still, great game. Oh My Goods, number 7.
I didn't like Oh My Goods in 2015, but they changed one or two small rules, which actually changed the game considerably. And now I like it quite a bit. And in fact, remind me, Eric, in our next episode, I'll talk about Rise to Newdale, the Oh My Goods board game.
Okay.
My number 7, I didn't even notice this. 7 Wonders Duel.
Well done.
I don't do that stuff on purpose. In fact,
Yes,
I try not to.
Mm-hmm.
7 Wonders Duel is a game. I usually don't think the 2-player version of a game surpasses the original game. In this case, it's pretty close. Drafting is just not usually a good 2-player thing, right? That's 7 Wonders is well known for it. And people made some 2-player variants for it. I was never interested in them. But 7 Wonders Duel, the drafting in this game where the cards were on top of each other, works phenomenally well.
Yes.
This is one of the most well-balanced 2-player games out there with 3 different ways to win: science, war, and just points. It has a lot of replayability. Very, very enjoyable. So it's my number 7, 7 Wonders Duel.
The way you pull those cards they're in a pyramid, and so you may reveal by taking one card off, allow your opponent to get something they really want. So maybe you don't want to let them have access to that card, and it becomes a bit of a chess match, like a game of chicken. Who's going to remove the card that is blocking the really cool card behind it? Very neat.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Number 6 is a game of hide and seek from Emerson Matsuuchi. It's called Spectre Ops. I love it. A nice production, cool minis. One player is hiding from the others and trying to get in and tag different locations in a facility while avoiding the hunters. At varying player counts, you can have a traitor that is working with the running player. hidden movement, very cool. Spectre Ops, number 6.
This shows what a good year this was. It's a fantastic game, and it didn't make my top 10, but I really like it. My number 6 is higher in Eric's list, if he made the right choices anyway.
Number 5.
My number 5 is the Splotter title from this year, Food Chain Magnate. It's a game about running your food empire, advertising for the things that people want. You have to advertise, say, burgers near a group of houses that will then want burgers, and then have a restaurant that provides those burgers so that you can sell those burgers to those houses that you advertise to. Or wait for somebody else to advertise burgers, and then you get better burgers at a better price than they are providing, and then take away their customers, which is great. Food Chain Magnate is complicated. It is dense. It can be punishing. But it's very rewarding when you get things to click. Food Chain Magnate is my number 5. And Tom, you played this recently, didn't you?
So it's my turn to talk about the third game at the beginning of the episode now. And Food Chain Magnate. And this is only my first impressions because I only played it once. I will likely not play it twice.
Oh.
Now, I realize that Food Chain Magnate has a steep learning curve. I guess I did not realize how steep. We played the game, and I was taught by Jason, who's not a very good teacher to begin with. He was trying to explain every single card in detail, and I was like, this doesn't help me if I don't know how the game plays. But we went through it and got through it, and I said, listen, I don't care if you beat me. That I don't mind losing it all, but I will say losing 840 some points to 36 is just an overwhelmingly crushing defeat. It sucks the life out of you, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with Food Chain Magnate, for me, is that you can literally lose in the very beginning of the game. And in fact, the designers of the game have said so. Their philosophy says if you can't lose on turn 1, then what's the point of having turn 1?
Right.
Every turn should be that important. I can't tell you how much I disagree on that. I don't mind losing on turn 1 in a 5-minute game. I mind a lot more when the game is 3 hours. And I also like a game where I can course correct and maybe try to come from behind with clever play. That being said, I understand I had a bad experience. So you don't need to come out to me at conventions and say, listen, if you played with me, it'd be a much better game.
If you played with me, it would be a much better game.
No, you would whoop me too. I'm cognizant of the fact that I lost, and that affects your views of games. But this is a very strong economic, in-your-face, punch the other person repeatedly type of game.
Yes.
Every move I made in this game was countered. Everything I did, the other person just stopped me. I'm used to interaction, but this was interaction where my hands were just tied. It felt like the whole game. And this has that really steep learning curve, but I don't think I enjoyed it enough to want to go back and play it 3 or 4 more times. I might have enjoyed it more had I learned it with 3 other people who had never played it before.
Yep.
And we all learned it together, maybe?
Yes.
And that might be how you learned it. I don't know.
Jason taught it, and I beat him.
Well, then Eric's just better than me.
Although I don't know how many times he may have only played it once before. But still. I totally agree. It is definitely one of those games that if the person knows the game better and knows the danger of certain moves and knows the counters and how this is one of those where you need to know how things are going to cascade and how this small little move is going to change how everything else plans out. And if you're not ready for that, or the move you made gets countered and there's just nothing you've taken your turn and everybody just sort of does everything around you, you're going to have a bad day.
Also, I am amazed that people defend the quality of this game. It has beautiful wooden pieces, and it has passable art with a nice kitschy 50s theme.
Yep.
But that board looks like I designed it in Paint on a computer somewhere. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. And here's what boggles my mind. Every time I say the board's ugly, there's people they come out of the woodwork and they'll say, it's not really that bad. Come on, blah, blah, blah. You're paying for the game. Sure, you're paying for the game. But why did you make it look so bad? Why does it look that bad? It's like it deliberately was made to look that bad.
Well, I think it was deliberately made to look like that. I don't think it's for lack of resources. I think they specifically went for as simple a design on the board as possible.
No, you can be simple and look pretty. That's where I'm sorry, I'm calling, that is a nonsensical argument to me. You can have simplicity and still look good.
Okay.
Simple does not mean ugly. This is ugly.
So you wanted, like, some green on the board.
I want it to look nice. I think people, again, it mind boggles me that people talk themselves into circles defending this third grader project that was done with this board. Come on. If someone painted your house like this, you would be furious with them.
Well, maybe I'm a big fan of Food Chain Magnet.
Well, sure, but that you should be able to be a big fan of Food Chain Magnet and say, yes, the board looks ugly.
Okay.
Garbage. All right, my number 5 is a beautiful game called Raiders of the North Sea. Raiders of the North Sea is a fantastic game. It's even better with its expansions. This is not the only Viking game on my list. It is certainly, actually, this is a year of Vikings, isn't it? This is one of 3 Viking games on my list, the first of 3.
Okay.
This one is amazing. It's a cool worker placement game where you put the workers on or take them off at the same time. I love it a lot. It is, of the trilogy of the North Sea games, easily the best one. That's Raiders of the North Sea.
Number 4.
My number 4 is a lovely little dice action selection game called Tiny Epic Galaxies. You're rolling a collection of dice and then spending resources to colonize planets or simply land ships on those planets to take the actions associated with the planet. Growing currency and then spending that currency to upgrade your civilization to get more dice, more ships. It's sort of an engine building system, which is great. It pushes all my buttons, and I really enjoy Tiny Epic Galaxies. And I'm looking forward to Ultra Tiny Epic Galaxies, which is coming soon.
I'm surprised this one's 5 years old already. I really do enjoy it. I am not looking forward to Ultra Tiny Epic Galaxies because why is this game getting smaller again?
So you can fit it in smaller objects.
Why don't you play Ultra Tiny Epic Food Chain Magnet?
Maybe. Will they upgrade the board?
My number 4 is Automania, which is a game that has artwork that turns a lot of people off, actually, because it looks silly and nonsensical. And I will admit that, even though I love the game. Anyway, Automania, fantastic game, worker placement game in which you are building cars, but it's really simple, really fast and fun. From a Porto games, man, I can't tell you how much I want to talk about this game all the time because this is one of those ones very few people play, and it's so fast, so fun, so interesting. Automania.
Number 3.
My number 3, I'm kind of surprised didn't make Tom's list. That's Codenames. The original came out in 2015, and
well, I like it, just not as much as others. I mean, I think it's fantastic, but there's a lot of great games came out this year.
I'm not arguing. It's this one still sees playtime in its various forms that have come out now, but the original is still solid. Great word game if you're a fan of Password, which I have been for many years. This was a great fit and one my family's enjoyed. Codenames, number 3.
My number 3 was Eric's number 8, and that is Blood Rage.
My blood, it rages.
It still amazes me that Eric has this on his list at all. We both played Blood Rage for the first time this year at Dice Tower Con. I remember that.
Yes.
It's a drafting game, which is the main reason I like it, but there's also a little bit of combat, cosmic encounter style combat, actually, and it has really cool miniatures. And it's a really good combo, this game. I just love it. Fantastic game. I don't love it as much as Sam Healy does, obviously, but I still think it's fantastic, and it really, for me, put Eric Lang at the top of the game when it comes to designers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised too, Tom. I really appreciate the clockwork of this game, the drafting and the card-based combat and making it all work, and its resource management as well, as you have to spend your rage points to do what you want to get done in a particular round, and planning that out is somewhat tricky sometimes, and I like that planning. Blood Rage was my number 8.
Number 2.
Number 2, Potion Explosion from Horrible Games. Really solid one that continues to hit the table with my family. I love the mechanism of that marble feeder, and you're drawing marbles out and getting them to collide and then grabbing more. And when you get a nice cascade of I grab one marble and then get like 3 more sets from them all colliding, it's really cool. And then using your potions and their special abilities to get more and get that cascade going. It's really fun. Potion Explosion, my number 2.
There's so many games that came out this year that had some pretty strong staying power. Easily, Codenames is the biggest one. Mm-hmm. We're going to see Codenames still sold in stores in 10 years. Potion Explosion, though, certainly on that list, too. Not on that list is my number 2, Adventureland, which is already out of print, unfortunately.
Yeah, so they've been liquidating it as far as I saw.
It's too bad. I love this game. It has a grid. You're slowly adding things to this grid. This was a year, 2015, by the way, that Haba entered the non-kids market.
Yeah, Adventureland was the premiere of this, what do they call it?
It was a 3 family games, I think. It was a 3 thing.
Yeah.
Adventureland, Spookies, and the big one of the group, the Karuba. Karuba got the most buzz of the 3 games. But Adventureland is my favorite. It works with 2, 3, 4, placing stuff on a grid and then moving your people and picking it up. It comes with 3 different games in the box, and you can add another 3 games if you buy the expansion. Just so much fun. Adventureland.
Yeah, I'm sort of kicking myself because, as I said, they were liquidating this at the Haba booth at the last couple of conventions I was at, and I just didn't have the luggage space to take it home. And I keep being told that this would be a good fit with my kids.
And finally, number 1.
Down to number 1, which was Tom's number 6. I have a sneaking suspicion this is the one that Tom says is no longer in his rotation because Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is a one-time through game unless you purchase another copy. But this was the legacy game that really made legacy games stick. It wasn't the first one, but this is the one that sort of showed us how a plot can really develop and how you can be taken on a ride, and how decisions that you make from one game are going to follow you along to other games. And let's just do one more adventure and see what that next envelope is going to reveal, what that next turn of the card is going to reveal in the legacy deck. It's such a great experience, and I still remember how I felt in September of Pandemic Legacy Season 1. And that is an experience that still shines brightly in my memory. It's why it's my number 1.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game, and it's my number 6, just because I can't play it again.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to be able to keep going back and playing it over and over. I could go through the campaign again, and maybe someday I will. But yeah, it's a special place in my heart because that was such a fantastic experience playing through it. My number 1 is Champions of Midgard, which I will be honest is not number 1. If you take the expansions out, it would be farther down the list. It would still make my top 10. But with the expansions, it is my favorite Viking-style game. I really like this worker placement game and then getting dice and using those dice to fight trolls and other bad guys. It just plays so smoothly. This game from Grey Fox is just an amazing, fantastic game and my favorite game from 2015.
Okay.
Really such a good year. And I think you'll notice that. You'll easily notice as we do this. Next week we're going back to the letter of the alphabet. But in 2 weeks when we go back to 10 years ago, you notice the games are not quite as good in 2010 and not as good as in 2005 or in 2000. We just have so many good games now. Like, I can't even get annoyed at Eric for not putting some of these games on his list because there's a lot of games on his list that I was like, that would have made my list easily, just that there wasn't any room.
Yeah.
Let's see what the People's Choice said. Number 10, Raiders of the North Sea. Mm-hmm. Number 9, Isle of Skye, From Chieftain to King.
Another solid game with a nice bidding mechanism that's a nice twist.
Number 8, Mysterium, although I might argue that it really came out fully in 2016.
Yeah, well, I couldn't quite figure out from the Board Game Geek listing if this was the original Polish edition or if this was the English edition that came out.
They're actually under 2 different names, so I'm not sure. Yeah. Number 7, Champions of Midgard. Number 6, Voyages of Marco Polo. Number 5 is Viticulture Essential Edition. I understand why people voted for that. I didn't because this was just another version of Viticulture which had come out prior to
a few years earlier. I felt the same way, although this was my first experience with Viticulture, was the Essential Edition. It's a great packaging of a tournament.
It would be my number one, folks, if I was picking note, because I like Viticulture that much.
Yeah.
Number 4, Blood Rage. Number 3, Seven Wonders Duel. Number 2, Codenames. And number 1, Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Indeed.
So there you have it. Well, what a fantastic year. What a good way to start off our 2020. 2020. Whew. You know, the show 2020's got to have a great year this year.
I'm sure that people are just going to tune in just because it's, this is the year. This is when they've been building up to this. It's like the
eyeglass places. Eyeglass places are going to be running sales all year long.
Yep.
I don't know. It's going to be fun. Folks, don't forget, check out our Kickstarter if you get a chance. Tell people about it. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Next week, Mandy and Suzanne, thanks so much for listening to our show today. I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 640, was recorded on January 2nd, 2020. Mandy and Suzanne join you next week, and in 2 weeks, Tom and I lounge lazily on the alphabet trail with our top 10 games starting with L. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has become more than you can handle, find out how we can help at jackvasel.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with assistance from Rob Searing, Mike Delisio, and Roy Cannaday. Our system of getting advice from George of the Jungle's best friend provided by Escape Plan. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network, including Dukes of Dice, Four Corners of the Board, Board Gamers Anonymous, Boards and Swords, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, The Geek All-Stars, The Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, and Dice Tower Tonight. Find your next favorite at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. Do we need to do like another stretch goal where we're doing a musical episode, or Tom promises to serenade?
We're getting close to that musical episode at Gen Con again. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming, but you'll never know until the last second. I dreamed a dream.